Hello and welcome to my channel at Painting Tutorials here on YouTube. My name is Dakota Dateweiler and today we'll be painting this monarch butterfly with a tulip on an 8x8 canvas. I plan on making a lot more videos for this channel very soon, so I hope you'll follow along and subscribe. Let's get started. Hi, welcome everybody to the butterfly lesson I'm creating specifically for the Dakotathon group. This lesson will remain up on my YouTube, so if you miss it, don't worry, you can do it anytime. Today we're going to be using acrylic paint and a couple of just simple brushes. Try to show you what I have here. So I have a couple of flat brushes. Here I have a liner, really thin detailed liner. One filbert, it's kind of a round brush, and then this is called a Mop Brush. And this is just really good for blending. You can also use this slow dry Liquitex blending medium. It's for acrylic paint. It just helps the paint not dry quite as quickly. So here we have our paints. We're going to do black, white, brown, red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. And you should have some sort of water jar near you, as well as a bunch of dish rags or old towels that you don't mind getting dirty. And also a palette. I use a sheet of glass. I love it because it's really easy to scrape off and clean when you're done, and it becomes like brand new again. So this flower is going to be a pink tulip. You're kind of looking at it from the underside up, and this is a monarch butterfly. And we're going to do a very blended out neutral background. It'll be really, really pretty when we're all done. I promise you don't need anything more than just this sketch and the paints and supplies I've mentioned. Get comfortable, make yourself some tea or hot chocolate, and let's get going. So first I'm going to start with a big flat brush. So what I do is I wet my brush a little bit so it's not super dry. And then we're going to grab some black, and I'll help you guys mix the colors here on the screen. Black, white, green, and brown. And when I tell you you don't need very much paint, you really don't. It's just like little dabs of each one. Kind of going to get this mossy green swamp color. And that is going to be our first color that we're going to put down. We're going to start over here on this side of the canvas. We're going to do segments, kind of patches of color as we're painting this part. It's going to look weird at first, but it'll look better as we go. So we're going to take that same color and we're going to add a little bit more brown to it, make it a little bit darker, and just a tiny bit of black. And now this is going to go right here. Now we're going to take that same color we're just using a second ago. You're going to add a little bit more green to it and a little bit of white. You get kind of a nice, a little bit brighter green color. Going to go right up against the flower and the butterfly, but don't cover up your sketch. And then we're going to bring that color over to the other two colors. Till you have something like that. So we're going to take that same green color, we're going to add a little bit more black to it, and we're going to do this bottom corner here. Use some water if your paint isn't spreading very well. Don't worry if you can see the canvas through your paint at this stage. You can always go back over it. Depending on what kind of acrylics you're using, like if they're heavy body or thinner acrylics, it might take 2 or 3 layers to get it to look right. Okay, we're going to add some white to this color and some blue. Not very much blue, just a little bit. And this is going to go on the top of the canvas right up here. Again, right up against the butterfly, but don't cover up your sketch. Bring it down to that first color that we did. And we're going to bring this color over the top. Take your time. We're going to bring this color all the way over here. Don't worry about the antennas, we can re-add those later, but you just don't want to cover up the flower or the main body of the butterfly. We're going to grab a little bit of black, mix that in with that bluish color we were just using. A little bit more green. So this is going to be kind of a darker color. Down here in this bottom corner. Bring it all the way to the edge of the flower. We're going to take some white, add it to that, and a little bit of blue. And do this last little section right here. It's kind of a greenish blue color. So your painting should look something like this for right now. Gonna give it a few minutes to dry, and then we're gonna come back, add another layer. We're gonna do some blending and continue on. Okay, so what I have done right now is, after I let that first layer dry that we did, I went back and redid all of it, just the exact same colors on top of themselves, so that the colors looked really solid and there was no canvas showing through. So if you want to, feel free, pause it and go do that and then come back. But we are going to head to the next step and start blending these colors together and making it look like a blurry background. So I'm going to take my filbert brush, which is this kind of rounded brush, and what we're going to do is work on right in between the colors. So it's where the colors meet. And if your paint is still wet, you'll be able to do this pretty easily. But if your paint's already dry, you're going to have a tough time. So what I would do is take a little bit of the color you're working with. So for instance, you could take this lighter color and work it down into the darker color. So that was a little bit of blue, white, and just a tiny bit of black to tone it. And you take the color, and this is if yours is already dry, and you kind of just work it very gently and softly down into the color beneath it. All I'm doing is just back and forth motions like this. So I'm going to do that all around the entire canvas up until we have no lines left is our goal. And that might take a couple of passes. If you start seeing your canvas poke through the color, it means you need to let it dry a little bit more before you attempt this. You can use a blow dryer, or if you have a sunny window, go put it out there for a few minutes. And then come back and keep working on it. You want the colors to look like they blend into each other, as if your eyes are out of focus. So again, what I'm doing is I'm taking one of the colors and I'm blending it down into the other color. So for this one, I'm choosing this green color and I'm blending it down into this color and into this color using my brush. And try not to blend it up into your flower. Or into your sketches. Oop, I grabbed a little bit of blue on accident. So again, I was just a little bit of the sky blue and working it down into this green that we've made. Working it back and forth until they get a little bit blended together. You let it dry and then you come back and do the same thing. If you're having issues with your canvas showing through the paint on parts like this, you either didn't let the bottom layer dry long enough before you started this, or you're pushing too hard on your brush. So this part is like, it's pretty soft. You don't want to be pushing down really hard with your brush. Now I'm just going back over to the other side and continuing to work on these colors until I like how they look. What I'm doing now is I'm going over what we've already blended out with a little bit of a lighter color. And all I'm doing is just a very quick dab of color on the canvas. And I'll show you what it looks like. So as you dab it, you kind of drag it down just a little bit like this. You'll get the hang of it as you go, but you want to just kind of go around the canvas and put these little bits of color in it. So depending on where you're at on the canvas, I'm not going to do it up here in the sky, but I'm going to do it down here where the foliage is. The goal is just to give the foliage a little bit of texture. So the color you're going to choose is going to be something that's just barely lighter than the color that's underneath it that we blended out. So it's just dab, 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 just like that. And that will give it a really nice light background, looking like a wispy, like bunch of foliage. I'm doing just a couple of pieces going up into the skyline. It would be sort of like leaves back there that are kind of shooting up off the ground. You can play around with it and see what you like. A lot of people always ask me where I learned how to do all this stuff, and it's literally just trial and error. Like, I have been painting for 12 years now, pretty much. I didn't paint when I was a kid. I drew, so I used pencils and pens and stuff. I didn't pick up a paintbrush really until I was like 22. So I'm 34 now, and this is all just years of I tried this and I didn't like it, and then I tried this and I liked it, and I tried this and I didn't like it. And then you develop a style and you develop like things that work for you and things that don't work. Just don't give up. Okay, and as you get closer down here to this darker color, you're not going to want to do a really highly contrasted color. You're going to want to do a little bit of a darker color. It's still going to be lighter than what's there, but just not as light as what we were using up here. So you can either add in a little bit of brown and green or a little bit of blue and green. Play around with it. So that's a little bit too dark. So I'm going to add a little bit of white. And go ahead and just start making your little dabs. So an important part of when you're doing this, and I don't know if you can see it super clearly, but I'm leaving space in between each of the dabs I do. So you're not wanting to cover up all of that base color that we did. You're going to want to leave some of it showing through. So space your little brush dabs out so that that color shows through underneath it. Okay, so once you have it looking something like this, we are going to add in a little bit of lighter sky right here because the sun is going to be coming from this direction down onto the butterfly and the flower. I'm going to grab a little bit of white and a tiny bit of yellow. And I'm just going to start up here in this corner and work down. I'm also going to use the blending medium so it's a little bit easier to work with. So up there in the corner, you don't want to do a ton. And again, I'm doing those dabs like I was just doing down here. So now I'm just going to take the blending medium by itself on the brush, and I'm going to drag this yellow color down using the dab motion again. We're going to diffuse it down into this blue. And I feel like that's a little bit too harsh, so I'm actually going to blend out some of that yellow. So, and remember the same principle over here is that every time I say principle now I think of Principal Diamond Painter. But anyway, over here we are going to be doing that dab motion, and you want to leave some of the blue sky in between your dabs. So you don't want to be dabbing and covering up every little tiny bit of blue. You want to give it some space in between. So like this. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow, green, and white and make this kind of light color and some of the blending medium. And this is going to be, some of these leaves would have like highlights on them from the sun. So that's what we're going to do back here. Just again with that dabbing motion, you want it to be really random, but remember where the sunlight's coming from and do it in that direction. So basically you're just imagining where the sun would be hitting the leaves that are back here behind the butterfly and adding some little highlights there. You can do as much or as little as you want. Again, remember to leave some space in between each of your little marks. If you're not sure where to put them, you can just kind of try to copy what I'm doing. So it got cut off on camera, but I added a little bit of white up here in the corner, and then I'm just still going through and adding in some highlights on those leaves. And I'm going to keep doing this until I like how it looks. I really don't have like a set plan for how many, or I don't really have a reference photo I'm looking at. I have a picture of a butterfly here, but that's it. So I'm kind of just making up the background as I go. So I'm just going through down here along the bottom with the same idea of just those random brush dabs. And I'm adding in some darker values. So I took a little bit of our sky blue over here and mixed it with the brown. And I'm just going to do some shadows with the same dabbing method, leaving space in between each one, make them kind of random, spread out. Okay, so what that's going to do is add in a little bit of contrast from the light to the dark, give it a little bit more realistic look. Alright, I think that's looking really nice. I'm still going to mess with the sky a little bit after it dries, but we're going to get started on this flower while this kind of sets up and dries. Alright, we're going to get started on this flower, and I'm going to do my best to make it very simple for you guys to follow along with. So we are going to make this flower kind of a pinkish red color. So for that, you take your red as the base. We're going to add in some white. Just mix it up. And a little bit of yellow. Not very much. All right, a little bit more white there. So this is the color you kind of want. It's like a nice pink. And we're going to start, actually I take that back. Sorry, I had the wrong brush. So I'm actually going to be using this little flat brush for this portion, mostly. So you want kind of a smaller brush for this area so you can get in between all those little spots. Okay. So this, we are going to start right here. I'm just going to fill in this little part here. So with this same color, we're going to go over here to this petal and fill in this spot. I call this color blocking. I have no idea what anyone else calls it or professionally trained people call it, but that's what I call it. Now we're going to paint this part up here by the butterfly's head. Same color, we're going to go right here underneath the wing. And then right inside of this little fold here. I know it's hard to tell what this is right now, but as we do more, you'll be able to see it better. And then one more spot is this little corner petal that's up here. Okay, now for the rest of the flower, we're going to be using a little bit of a darker color. So we're going to take the red and you're going to add in some of the sky blue. It should give you a really nice purpley color, fuchsia color. Okay, so we're going to start right here and bring that down. just like that. Same color. We're gonna go right underneath the butterfly. Don't worry about its legs. We're gonna go back and add its legs in. So just color right, or color, I don't know why I keep saying color. Just paint right up to the edge of the butterfly. And then this is actually going to be kind of a shadow from this petal here. So we're going to bring it over just like this. And we're actually going to take this same color and just run it along the outer edge of the tulip over here. You can use your liner brush for this if you're more comfortable. Just follow the edge of the tulip just like this. Okay. So that's a good start. So now what we're going to do is mix a color that's right in between these two shades. So this is going to be just red and a little bit of orange. And I'm going to do a little bit of white, but not very much. And that one is going to go right here. It's going to go right here as well. And it's going to go here. And right here. And right here. So I forgot a little spot with this darker color. So this is red and blue, and right here is, I forgot to put that in there. So go ahead and fill that in with a little bit of that darker color. So you should just have a little slit right here of white. And that is actually going to be the background color. So we're going to throw some green in there really quickly because I forgot to do that too. So grab whatever color is closest to right here on your painting, and you're just going to fill that part in. And that's just, you're looking through the petals, in between the two petals to the background. So that is what it should look like at this time. We're gonna do the little stem here really quick. I know this doesn't look good. It will. We're gonna add in a whole bunch of shadows and highlights and blend things out. So for now, let's get the base color put on this stem. So this is kind of a weird one. It's gonna be brown and green. And you're gonna do most of it in this color for now. We're gonna go back and actually add in some highlights and lowlights to this as well. But for right now, just brown and green. Okay, so we're gonna go back to this flower, same brush, using the same little flat brush I was using before. And we're gonna start with some white, and just a tiny bit of red. And right up here on this petal, we're gonna make this part is being hit by the sun pretty hard. So it's gonna have a pretty strong highlight in it. Try to follow the shape that I'm doing. We're gonna use that same color, but I'm gonna switch my brush to a liner brush, which is this detail brush. Let's see if you can see it. Use that white and red mixture again. And we are going to define a little bit of the edge of this petal. Like that. And then next we're going to do this petal, same thing. See if I can zoom in for you guys. Hopefully that helps a little bit, be able to see better. So I just did a little bit of a lip along the edge of this petal where the sun would be hitting it the strongest. And then bringing it down like this. And then we're going to add a little bit more red to this color. Not very much, just a little bit, just a little bit. And we're going to go over here to this side of this petal. And kind of outline just that edge of it. Now we're going to give it some detail lines, which are going to come down just like this. So this is the lip of that petal. We're going to get to that in a minute. But these little detail lines will make it look like it has ridges. So you want to bring a couple of them down, starting up here, and just swoop down a little bit. Okay. And notice how I left space in between them too, so that red color is still showing through. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a highlight on the inside. Kind of defining where it's going, just down here to the stem. Now I'm taking a little bit of this red and blue mixture, and I'm going to bring some of that shadow back up into the red that we just did, which is what makes it look good. You gotta work both colors into each other. I know some people are probably like, you're covering up all the work we've done, but I promise you there's a reason. There's a method to the madness. We're gonna come over here to this side too and drag up a little bit of that darker color. So it should look something like that. Right underneath the butterfly wing, there would be a shadow on this petal. So we're going to add a little triangle of dark color. It's the red and blue mixture. Okay, so all I did is I went over all of the colors we've already put down, and I just made the layer thicker so the canvas is really covered with it. So now we're going to add in some highlights and lowlights to this stem. So I'm going to grab a little bit of black and a little bit of red. And we're going to kind of line this side over here that's away from the sun with it. And right underneath the flower. So kind of like this. And then all the way down the back side like that. Now we're going to take white and yellow. And we're going to do a highlight on this side where the sun would be hitting it. You're not going to want to bring it all the way up to the top. See how I left a space right here? Because the front of the flower would be casting a shadow right here. So if you can imagine, that's how it would be. And then we're going to bring it back a little bit like this. At an angle. See how it's at an angle like this? And then down. So something like that. So let's continue with our flower. We're going to grab our flat brush, one of the smaller flat brushes that you have, and we are going to add in a little bit of blending and detail to the tulip right now. So let's grab some red and a little bit of blue and a little bit of white, and we are going to blend out some of these colors in the middle of this tulip to make it look a little bit more smooth, and then we'll add in some details after that. So what I'm going to do is go right over where the dark color meets kind of the red color, and I'm just going to go around it with my brush very lightly. I'm gently going to work that color into both sides. And all I'm doing is just a back and forth motion, really gently. So all I'm doing is working colors into the color next to them. So I took a little bit of red and I'm working it into this lighter color, just gently. Trying to get rid of that harsh line. I know the tulip still looks a little bit funky, but I promise it'll look better once we add all the little details. Fix some more of the lighting and add some more depth to it. Alright, so that's a good spot to stop right now. I'll hold it up so you guys can see kind of what it's supposed to look like at this stage. Something like that. This color looks a lot darker on screen than it is in real life. This is kind of just like a reddish purple on my end. See if I can zoom in so you guys can see better. Alright, so I'm going to take my liner brush, which is the little tiny round one, and we're going to do a little bit of white and yellow mixture and just barely any red in that. It's going to be a pretty light color. And we're going to go right over here. We're going to add in some definition to the edges of these petals that are getting hit by the sun on that side. I'm also going to add some more definition up here. I know we've already done this with the different color. I'm just going to go over it really quick. Sometimes with acrylic it takes multiple passes to get the color to show up correctly. I'm still using the same brush. I just switched to a different one because that one had a stray hair on it. It was bugging me. So I'm going to grab some of that yellow color we just made and add just a little bit of the red mixture we have here to it. It's going to make a really nice light pink color. We're going to add some of the veins of the petals right here. And it's just little lines, and you want them to be really light and gentle, coming down from the top of the petal right here towards this direction. And then I'm going to actually make a small sunshine line right here. So all I did is drag my brush across just like that with a little bit of that light color on it. And now I'm making some lines that are going back up. And this is just where the sun would be coming in from this direction and hitting the back side of that petal and kind of lighting it up. And also I'm going to do around the edges kind of like a wrinkly line. So you don't want this to be a straight line because the edge of a flower petal is not straight. It has little wrinkles and curves. But something just like that. I'm going to do the same thing right here. So now I'm going to grab just some red and tiniest bit of white, and I'm going to drag this color down into this part here. And again, I'm just making some lines with space in between them because it will resemble the texture of the tulip petal. I'm going to grab some red. And we're going to go along the outside here. Because I didn't like how that looked, so I'm trying to just fix the shape of it really quick, because I know we just went over that a second ago. That's a big part of painting, is making little adjustments as you go. So sometimes you'll be like, oh, we already did this, and it's like, yeah, but I didn't like it, so we're gonna make an adjustment. Paintings are not always linear. They're very like, do that, go back, do it again, fix that, add more, take some away. Alright, so again, I'm just adding some more ridges with a little bit of a lighter red color. So all I'm doing is adding ridges still along the petal, following the curve of the petals, and always ending towards the stem. I'm just using a little bit of red and white. Okay, so we have some more stuff we could do, but for right now I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back and add a little bit more to it. I would like to add some highlights along the bottom really quick before we move on to the butterfly though. So we're going to grab some yellow and some white. A little bit of black to tone it. So the key to getting your paint to spread really easily when you're using these liner brushes is to make sure your paint's really saturated with water or whatever you're using to thin your stuff with, and then it'll spread way easier. So we're just going to start down here and we're going to do some lines that come up a little ways but not all the way. And these are kind of like the highlights of where the petals are coming out. They're shooting out from the stem. They have a really vivid yellowish color even though it's a red tulip. It's really pretty. So just follow the curve of the petal like that. And you're going to want some space in between them so they're not perfectly around the whole thing, they're just in a couple of spots. And they only go up a little ways like that. So just kind of something like that. We're going to leave that for now. We'll come back to it and add some more. Let's get started on the butterfly. Okay. So we are going to start with just black. Grab some black and I put some water in it so that it'll spread easier. I'm using this flat brush, the smaller flat brush. It's kind of easier for me to work with to do big areas like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill in the entire body of the butterfly with black. We're going to start on the wing now. So I'm going to cover up these little tiny white parts. I'm going to try to go around the middle parts that are orange, but the outside little tiny white dots, I didn't even draw some of them in here because it's kind of easy to put them in there. So basically I'm just going to outline where the orange is going to go into with my brush. I highly suggest as we're doing this, if you want to pull up a reference image of a monarch butterfly on the internet and just look at it, it'll probably help you a lot. It's kind of easy just to check it out and see how the wings look and how the spots look and things like that. I'll show you guys what we're going to do down here now that this is a little bit more dry. If you can imagine, the butterfly's legs are going to be coming down like this. So it's going to have a shadow underneath it where the wings are, you know, the sun's coming from this direction and the wings and stuff will leave a shadow down there. So we're going to put that on there really quick. Just needed it to be a little bit drier before we did that. So I'm going to grab some blue, some red, and a little bit of black, just a tiny bit. And we're going to really, really water that down. Still using that same flat brush. And what we're going to do is go right underneath the butterfly. Follow the curve of the flower. Like this. And then right here. And when you do that, I call it a wash. I'm not sure what other people call it because, like I said, I'm self-taught. But basically, you are allowing the colors you put on here before, like this little highlight, to show through just a little bit darker. And it gives it more of a realistic shadow instead of just being like a black blob, which is what I used to do when I first started. So I'm going to add a little bit of a kind of a side shadow over here. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue for this because it's going to be a cooler shadow. A little bit of blue and white. Water it down using that same brush. And I'm going to follow the curve of the side of the flower over here. A little bit more white, I think. I'm going to add in a little bit of a green highlight to the stem. So just a touch of green, a little bit of white, and some brown. And what I'm going to do is go right in between this lighter color and the dark color. It's very slight. It's not going to be a really dramatic color change. There you go. That looks nice. So I'm actually going to add a little curve of this petal right underneath the wing here because I feel like it's weird how it just goes straight up and then disappears. So I'm going to make it curve out just slightly. Like that. And kind of looks more like a petal now instead of just like a line. Part of it. So it looks like the butterfly is pretty dry. So we can go ahead and continue working on that. So I'm going to continue using this same flat brush. And first we're going to grab some orange and some brown and mix that together. Kind of a darker orange, burnt orange color. We're going to start here in these little corners and work our way up. Don't worry if you get some of it on the black, we can go back over that and fix it later on. And then up here on this wing, we're going to do this one. A little bit, not all the way up, so just like that with this color. Now we're going to take pure orange by itself, and we're going to fill in the rest of this one first. I'm going to add in a little bit on the tip of this one here. This isn't a very drastic color change, so don't worry if you can't see a big difference. It's just about subtle color changes to make it look more realistic. And then we are going to grab yellow, mix it with a little bit of brown. So the burnt yellow color. We're going to fill in these here, the rest of these, with that color. Just bring it down to that brown color that we did. I'm actually going to do a little bit on the tips of these bottom ones as well. So right here, right here, and right here. We're going to do these bigger circles right here. And then we're going to add a little bit of white to that color. brown, yellow, and white. And we're going to fill in these with that one. Just like that. Okay. And then this wing, so if you can imagine it, this is the top and bottom wing, and then this is the other set of wings. And this set is towards the sun. So these colors would be having light shine through it, so it's going to be a lot brighter. That's why I put brown in all of these colors, to kind of tone them down. And we're going to do bright yellow by itself and a little bit of white. And we're going to fill in this side over here. I'm going to grab a little bit of orange, and I'm just going to do kind of what we did on the first one, and that's fill in the bottom of these circles, kind of blend it up into the yellow just very slightly. It's a great gradual color change. Just like that. So I'm just going to go over again what we've already done. All the steps we just did on the butterfly, I'm going to go over them again so that the color is really solid. So feel free to restart that portion if you need more instruction. All right, I have just gone over all of the butterfly with the same colors we did in the first step, and now it's a little bit drier and easier to work with, and the colors are thick on the canvas, so no canvas is showing through, which is what you want before you want to start detailing. So we're going to move on to doing the detail in the butterfly's wing. So first we're going to start with this part, and we're going to work our way down. So I'm going to grab some black and white and a little bit of blue, make kind of a light grayish blue color. So we're just going to follow the edge of the butterfly's wing, and it would have a little bit of a gray ridge here where the sun is hitting it. We're also going to do a little bit right here, kind of define this wing. Like that. We're going to use that same gray color, and we're going to go along the top of the head of the butterfly. Just give it a little bit of shape. Not too much, just a little bit. So if you notice, I left the black along the bottom here and along the bottom of the body because those would be the darkest parts. So we're just doing the parts that the sun would be hitting, and then underneath is still dark. Sorry for the display, but yeah, that's how I think of it. So I'm just cleaning up my line really quick. So we're gonna let that dry, and let's get some of the white dots laid out on the wings. Use a small brush, whichever one you're comfortable with, and grab just some pure white. And we're gonna add just a tiny bit of brown to that, and we're gonna do the dots on this furthest wing here. So I'm not looking at the original sketch anymore, so if your guys' sketch is different, feel free to fill them in however you see it. I'm just going to freestyle these dots on here. So this brown white color is only going to be on this furthest wing. We're going to do a different color on these, so don't do those yet. that's how I'm going to do that one. And then we're going to grab that same white color with brown, and I'm just going to add a little bit of black to it. Tone it down, because this one, these wings are in the shadow, so we don't want it to be quite as bright. So, oh, you can't see that because it's behind my head. But okay, so I'll mix it right here. So brown, black, and white. I want it to be a little bit darker than that color, and we're going to start on this wing and start giving it some little white spots. These might look a little bit dark right now. We can always come back and lighten them up later. If it doesn't look right, we can always adjust. I'm just going to throw a quick little line down here on the bottom of that wing, kind of give it some definition. Okay, so that looks nice for right now. We are going to add in some highlights and ridges to the butterfly wings to make it look a little bit more realistic. So first, let's start at the top. I'm going to use my little liner, my round liner, and I'm going to grab some white and yellow. Trying to see where you guys can see. White and yellow. Okay, so we're going to make a little ridge. There, it's hard to see it. Actually, let's make a darker color. So let's grab the yellow and brown. We're gonna make a shadow instead of a highlight on that one. So we're gonna make a little line just like that. Right there. And we're gonna do another one right here. Another one right there. And now we're going to go back with the white and yellow and just add a little bit of a highlight right over the top of where we just made that ridge. So that's good for there right now. Let's move down to the next wing. So white and yellow. A little bit more yellow this time, and add a little bit of brown, but not much. And we're going to do the same thing on these. A little bit of a ridge. A little bit of a ridge here. There. I'll show you how to do the shadows on there in just a second. Okay, so we're going to finish the ridges. We're going to come down here to this wing and continue. Ridge, ridge. I'm going to put one right there. So something like that. We're going to go back and add a little bit of shadow underneath each one of those. So again with the yellow and brown and just a tiny bit of black. And you're going to put that right underneath the highlights that we just did. Now we're going to finish up the color in the wings, and then we're going to add in the legs, and we're almost done. Oh my gosh, I bet you guys didn't think it would go this quickly. Oh, so excited. Okay, so grab some white. I'm still using that liner pen. I'm still using that liner brush. So white and a little bit of brown. We're going to go back through and add in some highlights to these white dots we did earlier. So see how I'm leaving the bottom half that darker color that we did? And now I'm going to lighten up some of this right here and right here for some finishing touches on that wing. So it's going to be white, yellow, and a little bit of brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along the edge of these outer yellow-orange pieces and drag that lighter color into it. I'm going to do the same thing up here on this part. one last thing I'm going to do on here before we finish up the body is I'm going to go back with some black and my liner brush, and I'm going to just define these areas that we did really well. Now we are going to add in the little antenna and its legs, and maybe do a few finishing touches, and then we will be done. So grab your liner brush again, and we're going to start with the antenna. You're going to want to water down your black really well for this, because it's going to be a really thin wispy line. So it is going to start, like, find a point where you want it to go. And it's going to be a little bit of a circle, just a very, very small dot. And then you're going to curve it and connect it to the top of its head. Like that. My hands shake sometimes, so mine are definitely not perfect. This is going to be the second antenna. So again, you're going to want to start and make just a little dot like that. And then you're going to bring that on a curve over to the top of the head, just like that. So the butterfly legs have some that come out front. They are kind of like a upside down V. So you're going to start on the body right here towards its head. What you're going to do is make a curve that goes like this. So it's curved like that. And then it's going to curve back like that. So they have a very like curvy leggies. And then the ones in the back do the opposite way. They curve out like this, and then they curve down, and they kind of have these little feet down here. And butterflies have 6 legs, but it like never shows in any of the pictures. I don't know if their 2 little front legs are just really small. Okay, so I had to look it up because I know butterflies have 6 legs, but this is what it says. One of the largest families of butterflies is Nymphalidae. They are often called 4-footed butterflies because they only stand on their middle and rear pairs of legs, while the other front pair is curled up. So I was going to add 6 legs, well 3 on this side that we could see, and it looked so weird, and I could not figure out why. Like, that just looks wrong, even though I know they have 6 legs. And that's why, because I don't think I've ever seen a butterfly with all 6 of its legs down. So that would be why it looked weird to my brain. So anyway, that's where we're at for the legs. Learned something new today. I'm trying really hard to learn more about things that I paint and not just go for it, because typically that's what I do, and then I mess up and people go, oh, that's wrong, and I'm like, ah, yeah. You live, you learn. You gotta make mistakes to grow. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of a gray highlight on some spots on the outside of the leg, if you guys want to do this. Okay, so if you have finished that step, congratulations, you did it. Try to see if I can get the camera adjusted. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to vote in the comments of this video section on what I should do next, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm always looking for suggestions. I encourage you to always add your own personal touch. Adding your own personal touch just makes it unique and it makes it you. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I will try as hard as I can to stay on top of answering those. Thanks for joining today, and I hope you had fun. Be sure to subscribe for more content just like this.